Hey, today is the 22nd day of Elul, the 25th of September. We're in chapter 20, the end of chapter 20 of Shorish Mitzvah Tefillah and Derech Mitzvah Secha. So I neglected to say something important yesterday. We said that we learned this new word, Tevuna. And we said that there's 3 Tevunot. And that Tevuna is like the applied understanding. I have understanding and comprehension. Tevuna means comprehension. And I said that I gave all these examples from science, and I said the example from Chassidus, but I didn't stress it in the same language. So I want to phrase it in the same language. A scientist wants to use mathematics, or call it the empirical method, to study something about nature. That's his purpose. He wants to get to nature. A Jew wants to take his understanding and apply it by developing love and fear of God. That's the application in Torah. Because we have these 2 mitzvot. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha ve'aret Elokecha. You should love Hashem, you should fear Hashem. Or have awe of Hashem. So this is the application for us. So the comprehension is what applies it. So if in science the application is physics, chemistry, biology, so the application in Torah is love and fear of God. And that's what he calls ben ubat. That's what he calls the son and the daughter that come out. So now I phrased it in the same language so that it's clear. I hope. In any case. Now he says, "V'lechen sheyach al zeh lomar ein mispar." Now, this dvuna, comprehension, how many different emotions can it give birth to? An infinite. And so that's the question we started with. He said, "Ulitvunato ein mispar." He should have said, "Litvunato ein cheker." His comprehension cannot be fathomed, cannot be understood, cannot be fully comprehended. His comprehension is beyond us. Instead, he said his comprehension is uncountable. And he said that's like a categorical confusion. But now he says, no, the meaning is that the comprehension gives birth to many, many different nuanced emotions in the heart. How many? Uncountable. And so that's why it's relevant to say, that's why King David says, Ulitvunato ein mispar. It has an infinite number of emotional children. Shenoladim v'nimshachim min habina. They come out of understanding here, in this case, from the comprehension. Hem beribui le'en mispar. They are uncountable, mamash bli gvul, without any limit. Mitzad itkalelut midot zo im zo. And it's exactly the same thing that we saw regarding the angels, because the emotions of the heart can be inter-included in one another ad infinitum, without end. The loving kindness of Gvura, and so on. As many as you want. And that's the same thing as what we said, that there are an innumerable number of troops to the angels. And the troops, we said, is each one of these nuanced emotions, which is a connection of 2 midot, ad infinitum, can keep going as many as you want, so there's an uncountable number, kanal. אבל בכל גדוד יש מספר כמה מלאכים ניתבים ונמשכים ממנו, לפי שהמידה נמשכת בביאה. But within each troop, there is a limited amount of angels that can be formed, in the same way that there is a limited amount of words that we can say, even though our words come to express our emotions. Why is this? Because the words are already the malchus of Atzilus, they're already the kingdom of emanation, and their purpose is to go down into the 3 lower worlds, and the 3 lower worlds are limited. So there's a limited number of words that can be said. So from every emotion that I feel, there's only so many poems I can write. Yeah. So he said, Ein Cheker is like I'm saying it's something intellectual. And he said there's no end to the comprehension. But, no, but in mispar here is talking, the uncountable is talking about the product of the comprehension. It's not talking about the comprehension itself. It's talking about what comes out of the comprehension. And there he says that it can be described as uncountable. Otherwise, again, you would have to say unfathomable, incomprehensible. His comprehension is incomprehensible. That's how we should have said. That's in Cheker. ששם נעשה התחלקות על ידי צירופי אותיות שהתהוו המלאכים בעלי הגבול, and the Malchus of Atzilus, the kingdom of emanation speech, is where the division into different angels, each one made out of a different composition of letters, is formed, and they have a limit. וגם כמה מלאכים ימשכו מכל גדוד במספר מטעם הנ"ל, רק שהוא מספר רב ועצום, 1,000, אלפים וריבו רבבות נולדים ונמשכים מעמדה אחת, הנעשית מתקלות המידות, והוא נקרא גדוד, ולגדודיו אין מספר. Okay, so he's just repeating everything we just said. Okay, now we're in chapter 21. 21. We just finished 20. נמצא מובן מכל זה, סיבת התהוות הריבוי בנבראים, אשר 1,000 אלפים מספר גדוד אחד ולגדודיו אין מספר. What is the take, what's the outtake of all of this? So what does this lead to? So he says, the number of creations is limited just like the number of angels. There's the number of creations, creatures that God created is many, yes, but it's not infinite. Okay. In the same way that there's not an infinite number of angels. Yeah. Even though there is an infinite number of troops. Right? Remember? Okay. So, let's say that God would have created this world not with loving kindness. It says in Tehillim, chapter, I believe it's 90, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. The world is built out of loving kindness. So Hashem built the world out of loving kindness with all its infinite variations. The Gvura of Chesed, the Gvura of Chesed, the Hod of Gvura of Chesed, however many you want. But in the end, since it's only from one troop, it's called in this case one troop of Chesed, so there's a limited amount of creatures that can come out. What's the idea here? The idea is that angels are mapped in a one-to-one correspondence to each type of creature. There's a book called Sefer Shira, Perek Shira, a chapter of song, and there every part of creation, not every part because it's a limited-sized book, but the fact that it's limited already gives you the idea. Because there's a limited number of angels, there's a limited number of creations. Each angel is speaking a song that's related to the particular creation. So there's what the earth says, and what the heavens say, and what the the rainbow says, and what the clouds say, and what the rain say, and what the dew says. Every one of them says something. All these somethings are some kind of angel speaking. That's the usual explanation. It's not that the song is sung by the part of creation itself. It's rather that it has a governing angel that is the one that's singing it. So our world, even though it has many, many, many creations, is still limited. בהשגות שונות זה מזה, פני אריה, לימין, פני שור וכולי. Each part of creation, because we have these, out of chesed, out of loving kindness, there come all these different variations, all these different nuances of emotion. So because all these come out, so now we have that there are angels that come from the lion, which is like the right side, and there are those that come out of the ox, which is the left side. So within creation, you also have these. You have carnivores, which would be related to the lion. Surprisingly, they're loving kindness. Maybe because they have to deal with more issues, because they're carnivores. And the digestive issues. It's much more difficult to digest meat than it is to digest plants. And then you have the oxen, they're the left side, and so on. And each one הוא נמשך מצד שינויי הצירופים של אותיות הדיבור העליון יתברך, וריבוי שינויי הצירופים הוא מחמת ריבוי התקללות המידות עליונות. And each one of the different, he's just repeating what we explained. So each one is an inter-inclusion, each troop, each source of these combinations of letters for each one of the angels, for each one of the creations, is a different combination of sfirot, one in the other, these emotions of the heart, one inside the other, inter-included, mitkalel migvura vegvura michesed, and so on. והם נמשכים כולם בגילוי בבחינת דיבור העליון. לכן מתהווה מזה ריבוי צירופים שונים שאין דומים הצירופים שבבחינת חסד לצירופים שבבחינת גבורה. So we have all these combinations of letters from the side of loving kindness, from the right side, and all these combinations coming from the left side, from גבורה. שבבחינת חסד נמשך אור מים, ומבחינת גבורה רקיע. So we take one of the most basic triplets of creation. They're called Or Maim Rakia. The three things that were created in the first 2 days of creation were light, water, and the firmament. Each one is mentioned 5 times. So, the light and the water are from the right side. And the firmament, because it divides, it separates, it's from the left side. That makes sense. ומכל מקום, כוח ההתחלקות, האותיות וצירופן, נמשך מבחינת חוכמה הילה דווקא. But let's not lose sight of the fact, as he told us a few chapters ago, that the beginnings, the origins of these separate letters and the ability to combine them together comes from wisdom. אלא שהחוכמה הילה מאירה בדיבור על ידי המידות, וגם המידות מתלבשות בצירופים. But that wisdom affects speech through the attributes of the emotions. That's how it works. So again, if somebody would be reading this the first time, he wouldn't know anything about Kabbalah, he'd now think that Kabbalah is not talking about the creation of the world, it's rather talking about speech. And it's one of the main parables that the Alter Rebbe uses. I believe there's 4, 5, 6 main parables that he uses, and he takes all of the Kabbalistic knowledge and he uses these parables to reorganize everything, to explain everything to you again. And since we're talking about prayer, so clearly the parable we're interested in is speech. And so how does speech form? How is it created? Where is it coming from? What's it signifying? And so on and so forth. So this is all a new way of organizing everything. כמו שכתוב באריכות, כמו שמבואר במקום אחר באריכות, as explained in length elsewhere. שזהו פירוש ייחוד יעקב ורחל. Now he tells us something even more. We haven't heard these words before. It's the first time he's mentioning these. This is called the unification of Jacob and Rachel. Where did this suddenly come from? Because Jacob is Zah. He is the Zeir Anpin. He's a small countenance. He is the archetype of the small countenance. And so he is all the emotional attributes. And he's the one who's doing all the inter-inclusion of the different emotions one inside the other. And Rachel, his wife, she is the world of speech. She is the kingdom of emanation, the Malchus of Atzilus. So this is called the unification of Yaakov and Rachel. Meaning, in other words, that what happens if Yaakov is not involved with Rachel? What if he's not there? Can there be speech without emotion? So it's hard to answer. On the one hand, most of what people speak is because they feel something. On the other hand, there is such a thing as speaking without feeling. There is such a thing. What does it mean to speak without feeling? It's like an intuitive type of speech. That a person sort of knows what to say without actually knowing. This would happen, for instance, to a prophet. So you're going to say most of people speak this way anyway. If they're on automatic autopilot, they're just saying what they always say. Imagine that you're working as a clerk in a store. The questions you get every day are all the same. The things you do every day are all the same. And so you just keep repeating the same thing again and again and again and again and again. So that's a type of speech that comes not from a lot of emotion, but we still can't say that it's not an emotion. The emotion here is, how do I get rid of you as fast as I can? Because I'm really not interested in talking about this. This is not something that's interesting to me. So if that's the case, then there is such a speech. But there's a higher type of speech, which we call the speech of a king. And the speech of a king is supposed to be entirely intuitive, meaning that it's not related directly to what he feels. He's saying something higher. It's not his heart that's talking.
It's in the heart of.
It's the heart of the people that he's expressing. And that can. So some people would say that most of the time he was speaking from his heart, and people felt it. They felt it. He had genuine interest in him. But when he gave advice, when it was something like, or he saw people quickly in dollars, and you don't have time to develop anything with the person. So where is he talking from? Where is he saying things from? So he's saying it from a higher place. It's still speech that's related to emotion, but it's emotions coming from a higher place. So there is such a thing as Rachel that is not related to Yaakov, which gives out speech. But it's very uncommon. We won't address this. The usual type of speech we have is called the yichud, the unification of Yaakov with Rachel. And with this we'll end today. And Bezrat Hashem continue tomorrow.
No,
No, it doesn't look.